Believe it or not, there will soon be several new MMOs you can play in the next few months. There's just one big catch. They're still in development and they're incomplete. But the thing is, with the current state of the MMORPG genre, a lot of these games may actually be our next big hope for what actually a good MMORPG looks like. Games that are a bit closer between developer and, the actual player. And so I'm hopeful with all of these, and many of them have a pretty easy way to access. Some of these testing phases are completely free, while others cost about $10, $40, $50, I guess up to $100, just over $100. But if you're looking for something to play and you don't mind testing, and it's a key word here, testing upcoming MMORPGs, well then there's actually quite a few you can play. Soon, as in in the next couple of weeks, or you already can. Let's talk about some of these games and the ones that I really think are really interesting. And quick side note, in all of these I will include a negative, but this isn't like a review of the games, it's more like this would be a negative if you are a person who doesn't like this particular thing, like PvP or grinding. Let's get into it. Wait, did I? Oh shit, a skeleton! Oh shit, it's level 10! Oh shit. Oh my god! Wait, oh no! Shit!
A few moments later.
No. Oh god, it's still chasing me. Now there's fall damage? If you're looking for a beautiful Unreal Engine MMO with a heavy focus on PvP and emergent gameplay, Astro Creation is likely to be the game for you. They just dropped their visual NDA and opened up into Alpha 2 testing on October 25th for those who had previously purchased their Alpha 2 key package. It gets a bit convoluted with how you access, so we'll save that for its own section. But suffice it to say, yes, you actually can play this game soon. But what is this game? Well, Astro Creation is an in-development indie MMO that is using something called a PvX model. Basically, PvP plus PvE. The big takeaway here is that it will have an always-on PvP system that uses a corruption system to punish player killers, not unlike what was used with the murderer system in Ultima Online. Though from the sounds of it, the corruption system is a bit more punishing and treats PKing a bit more harshly, even taking away, eventually, the ability for PK players to continue to, well, PK. At least in theory. That's kind of what we're trying to test here, testing if it's working. However, it really should be noted that PvP is widely encouraged for this game. There are ways to engage with PvP even out in the world by just going into combatant state, a kind of middle state in between being innocent and being a corrupt player killer. We'll get a bit more into some of the PvP system in a second, but the other big highlight that you might want to write home to your mother about is a feature of Astro Creation called the node system, a system where nodes will grow from small villages to grand cities through player involvement, both from PvP and PvE. As players complete various tasks within any given area, this allows those nodes to grow into massive cities. They can also be cities that are besieged by enemy guilds, open world PvP, caravan defense, and attack PvP all make up some of the biggest parts of Astro Creation. But all this wealth of PvP is not all the game has to offer. There is a PvE component as well. The game has heaps of quests to complete, NPCs and name to fight, dungeons, raids, and world bosses. It will also have these really interesting progressive events, which is perhaps the most intriguing part of the game for me. And they're called story arcs, which are narratives that unlock in chapters based on various activities done by players in each realm, which could potentially lead to different servers having different story arcs. Just like the nodes being built through PvP and PvE activities will also be different per server. If you want to jump into Astral Creation Alpha 2, well, it's gonna be the most expensive one on this list, so it goes down from here. But let's discuss the phases and how they'll work because it's kind of important. There'll be 3 phases and 3 corresponding bundles. Phase 1 has already started, but it even has a second part to Phase 1. So Phase 1 started on October 25th, but it'll have a second start of November 8th for newly purchased bundles, the Phase 1 bundles. These keys cost $120 and will run from now until the launch of the game, with whatever necessary interruptions need to happen in then. They will also include 1 month of playtime at launch at $15 value. It should be noted that Astral Creation does not plan to launch with a box price, just a subscription and a game shop that will have no pay to win. These tests for Phase 1 will only be open during the weekends, which is why you're not seeing anyone playing Astral Creation right now. They'll have to wait until next weekend. The Phase 1 bundles will have stopped selling on November 1st, so by the time you're watching this, they may already be done. Phase 2 of Alpha 2 starts on Friday, December 20th, 2024, and expands testing to up to 5 days or more each week for testing. The Phase 2 key is $110 and includes the same access and 1 month game time as Phase 1 keys. Purchase ends for this phase key on December 13th, 2024. The third and final phase of Alpha 2 begins on Thursday, May 1st, 2025. This is when the game should end up with 24/7 access. Of course, except for usual update downtime. Phase 3 keys are $100 and include the same testing access and post-launch 1 month game time as the others. Purchase of these keys will end on May 27th, 2025. It's a lot and it's expensive, and if you're not willing to be part of a game in its stages where it's kind of incomplete and a little bit broken because it's still an alpha, I would not recommend jumping into this, especially at this price point. Just wait. You can wait until it actually gets to its 1.0 release if you are wanting to have a full-on game experience. But if you're just looking for something to play and you want to give some valuable test experience, then this is your time to jump into the game. And honestly, that's a thing that applies to just about every single game on this list, but I will reiterate it. With Astral Creation, there are few negatives here to pick from, but the one that I think is going to be the most informative to everyone watching this is going to be really who this game is for and who it's going to resonate with. From what I've seen of Ashes, even though it has both PvP and PvE, and there's a lot to care for with both, if you are not a fan of PvP, I do not believe you'll get the most out of this game. It does not feel like in any way, shape, or fashion it will be PvP optional. So if you're looking for something more cozy and less combative, well then perhaps our next game will be worth playing on this, and it's a game that actually comes from MMORPG royalty. Very cozy game. One that is perhaps being made by one of the most famous people in the MMORPG space, who I didn't know existed because I never played RuneScape. But let's talk about Brighter Shores.
So you want to join the Hope Port Town Guard? Then here's what you need to know. We're not just about fighting fire toads. We also investigate potential threats and help out the people we meet. All recruits will learn how to use magic, alchemy, and whatever this thing is. You will also be trained in essential survival skills, like fishing, blacksmithing, and assembling dinosaurs. So, set sail for Brighter Shores today.
Brighter Shores, coming from Andrew Gower, may have perhaps the most amusing delay reason for any game ever released in the MMO space. As you see, they were going to release on a somewhat important day, as they said in their tweet. We have decided to push the launch on Brighter Shores back to the 6th of November, because apparently there is some sort of election thingy on the 5th. Who knew? So obviously the election thingy happens to be the US elections. Andrew Gower, for those unfamiliar, like myself, is the co-creator of RuneScape all the way back in 2001. And Andrew Gower is now launching his own MMO, just over a decade since he moved away from RuneScape. And it looks like there will be a lot of similarities, though the game is shaping up to be distinctly its own thing too. Brighter Shores is described as a point-and-click style MMORPG with huge numbers of professions to try combat to life skills where you will embark into a land of magic and mysteries. You can be a woodcutter, a merchant, a stonemason, a cryo knight, which sounds freaking cool, a guardian, or a hammer mage. That sounds cooler. I want to be a hammer mage. It will have unique and devastating foes to fight, an ongoing story to uncover, and seems to be following the DNA of RuneScape by creating a world where you can do all sorts of things, not simply follow a single linear combat and leveling path. For fans of RuneScape, or perhaps other more sandboxy games like Ultima Online, Star Wars Galaxies, where you could dive deep into combat, or take time with non-combat professions, this seems to be expanding an area of MMOs that's a little bit underserved at the moment, with Palia leaning far into the non-combat realm, Albion and UO still showing a lot of their PvP roots, and of course RuneScape itself, which honestly, yeah, that's a huge part of the market. So if it sounds like fun and you want to jump in and see what this game is all about, I've got some good news, because it's exactly $120 less than the Ashes of Creation access, because it's free. It's free to enter, because it's going to be a free-to-play title, kind of. That's actually what I want to talk about. It's not really a negative, but we'll get to it, part of it in a sec. But you will be able to jump into this in early access on November 6th. Early access being a test phase, so still like Ashes, it's in testing. It is not a full launch. It's not a 1.0. But like I said, the downside, the free-to-play part of it, the monetization model feels a little bit weird, and perhaps I'm just being a little anxious here anytime I see something trying to be given away for free. But it feels kind of like what Brighter Shores is doing is a bit like an extended trial. They will have no box price, but they do have a separate part that you will have to pay for if you want more game. The game will include 2 areas for free, Hope Port and Hope Forest. But if you buy the premium pass, what seems to be like a monthly subscription, you expand out to the Mine of Mantabon and Chronopolis, as well as a unique character name, exclusive armor dice, the ability to change your name, and player-to-player trading. Player-to-player trading always makes me nervous. I get that it's a helpful tool to prevent people like bots from going in the game and selling gold and stuff, but shit, like ever since more recently with Throne and Liberty disabling player-to-player trading to encourage you to use Lucent, I'm so nervous. Maybe I'm putting too much on Brighter Shores. In the free part of the game is promising hours of content before entering into the premium pass. Oddly enough, we still don't actually have a confirmation on the cost of the premium pass, but it does really sound like it'll be a recurring fee, like a subscription, with new episodes opening up, so that premium pass actually gains in value, I suppose. We'll just have to wait and see a little longer how it's actually all going to work out. Look down in the comment section for a pinned comment to my updates on any pricing if we get them. This part of the negative comes in because I'm worried a little bit that there's not going to be enough content. Even when they talk about what you'd get with the premium pass right now, you're only talking about potentially up to 4 zones, and depending on how big those zones are, which if you look at the footage, it doesn't look that big. I don't know. We're just gonna have to wait and see, but I am worried about the amount of content that will exist and how it will exist with the amount of like the premium pass. And if you will feel like the desperate need as soon as you start playing that you've exhausted all content in the free areas. Basically turning an optional subscription into a mandatory subscription very quickly. But let's say you're looking for something a little bit more, I don't know, futuristic. Maybe a little bit more MOBA. Maybe the next game is going to be up your alley. Have you ever wondered what it would be like if a MOBA played like an MMORPG, or rather, an MMORPG played a bit like a MOBA? Corepunk is an upcoming MMORPG from Artificial Core that will be going into a long-awaited early access period. Early access testing. It's not what WoW did and sold you early access. It's testing. It'll be breaking somewhat new ground in the space by blending cyberpunk aesthetics with high fantasy. Basically, orcs with lasers and neon lights and bad jokes.
Hi, may I plant my seed in you?
Who are you?
I am Megabotton7, a proud product of Plantech Innovations Inc. My design allows me to house larger plants, offering a solution for your large crop needs. With me, you're cultivating efficiency and success. I've even won an award for being outstanding in my field.
So basically my channel, without the neon lights. Looking at the game, the connection to the MOBAs is going to be pretty apparent very soon, from how combat works with a small set of active skills to the fog of war mechanics that allow enemies, both PvE and PvP, to jump out at you. Corepunk will feature PvE only zones alongside more hostile PvP zones. It has a full suite of crafting to offer, as well as an enhancement system to upgrade your gear, as well as detailed skill advancement. It plays quite a bit slower paced, but with some satisfying whack to its abilities, which may scratch the itch for players who love the look and feel of a MOBA, but find the current crop of those games to be too linear and repetitive versus the potential for an open world adventure in Corepunk. The game continues to go over several iterations and testing, as it constantly is seeing changes with how they phase players in and out of the game, the depths of quests, and how much hand-holding, or lack thereof, they provide. It's an evolving project, but one with a clear aesthetic and a goal for its gameplay loops. For the game, you'll choose from character hero classes, each with their own unique playstyles, and customize them from there. Thankfully, the game moved away from pre-made hero characters and opened up customization, allowing you to fine-tune your characters even more, though it won't boast the same kind of customization as, say, Ashes of Creation. If you're looking for a game that's balanced between both PvE and PvP, Corepunk may be the game that you want to try. Corepunk will be launching into early access on November 26, 2024. Pre-orders for early access are currently suspended after previously being sold for between €33 and €53, or roughly 35 and 57 USD. The packs didn't appear to have any sort of pay-to-win elements beyond some cosmetics, unless the mounts provide to be something especially beneficial. But I guess at this point in the MMORPG genre, as long as you are not selling a mount that is $90 and includes a portable auction house, you're fine. Pre-orders will reopen shortly before early access begins on November 26, 2024. My negatives for Corepunk are pretty well documented. If you look right here, you'll see that the health bar isn't going up. Even after combat, it just kind of flatlines because there's no passive regen. You have to use consumables. You are forced to use consumables or camps or other things to try and make up for what kind of, to me, feels a bit like something that should be a basic thing. It artificially slows down the combat. There's a difference between hardcore gameplay and frustrating gameplay, and I tend to believe that this forced use of consumables is a function that falls under the latter. It makes sense in a MOBA, but I worry that in some ways the game may lean too much into that inspiration to be well received as an MMO, which has significantly more grinding, more downtime, and world exploration. But who knows, they could prove me wrong, because maybe this is such a huge and important part of the game that it actually makes all of the pieces come together, and it may actually be really loved by the players that enjoy this game. It just felt off to me. Just even a little bit of passive regen would be good, as far as I'm concerned. And it should be noted that yes, doing stuff like this, like sitting in a camp, that does regenerate your health, as well as consumables and crafting, and there are some passives that you can get with certain classes at certain levels. So it's not like you have to go and die or something like in a MOBA to regenerate your health. There's at least something that you can do. Now, we're going to take a break from the early access titles because this game right here is actually already released. Not just it released in early access and then it released into 1.0, but they're making such a big consequential change that I think it's worth talking about. Fractured Online, the indie MMO built in the shadow of Ultima Online as a sandbox PvP PvE MMO, is going free to play on November 20th, 2024. Fractured Online's history has been, well, fractured. After the breakdown of a publishing deal, Fractured Online pulled itself out of early access to work on the game and then finally released with a slightly de-scoped version of the sandbox MMO on July 24th, 2024. Given the current struggles of the game to hit any kind of peak players, switching over to free-to-play is probably a good idea, even if they were only asking a $15 box price prior. Players who did already purchase will get $15 worth of VIP credit, which is basically their optional subscription to match that box price, making sure they get something out of it. Fractured Online is an interesting MMO because it has all kinds of, it feels a lot like Ultima Online in a lot of ways, but also, like, as you notice here, like, some of the combat is a bit more engaged, and you also, as you go through the game, you can learn skills from fighting other creatures. But I think the thing that has me the most excited is actually them adding in something new with this update, called dungeons. Dungeons are part of what they're adding with free-to-play with their new 3-month seasonal content. These dungeons will be done either solo or with predetermined group sizes, and they're all PvE dungeons, though they have said that they are open to making PvP dungeons as well in the future. Fractured Online in a lot of ways follows a lot of Ultima Online's whole idea. It is a sandbox style MMORPG that has PvP and PvE, and it's obviously a top-down isometric game where you kind of go out and explore the world. But it is also very much made by an indie studio, and it kind of shows at times. But it is one of those games that is working hard post-launch, and they have promised no pay-to-win crap in the shop, and they will not be making any changes to monetization as it stands, other than just simply dropping the box price. If or until that changes, it sounds like this is a win, because the barrier to entry is dropped without adding something else to compensate for it. The question is, will it work? And that's where the negative for this game comes in. The negative is honestly, the biggest one, is population. It has struggled to maintain a player base throughout its entire development. They may see a bump with free-to-play, but it's not guaranteed, even with this Dungeons update. Dropping barriers to entry is usually a good thing because it can bring people in who may have never tried your game. But if they stick around is a different question entirely. I want to do a quick cut here to say thank you so much to my patrons who are, through their support, helping me buy shit like this that allows me to make stupid stuff like this on the videos. Thank you very much for your support. It means a ton to me. It really does. And I cannot thank you enough for the continued support here on YouTube as a member, over on Twitch as a subscriber, or on Patreon. I do want to say that if you are interested in becoming a patron on Patreon, you do get ad-free videos over there as well. But there is not really any bonus content, except like there's one with my cat recently. But primarily, it's just ad-free videos. But it is all appreciated, so thank you so much to all of you. I really appreciate it. Believe it or not, another long in development MMORPG is actually going to be soon launching into early access, which by now we know, right? It's a test phase, so I'm not even gonna have to repeat it. But it is a test phase. It is not a soft launch. The game is in testing. Pantheon: Rise of the Fallen will be going into early access in December of 2024. Pantheon: Rise of the Fallen is the brainchild of EverQuest legend Brad McQuaid. The game has had a long and bumpy development history, including the tragic loss of some of its team members, including its founder, Brad McQuaid. It's now spearheaded by creative director Chris Joppa Perkins, as well as several others, including another EverQuest legend in Steve Clover, one of the MMO's co-creators. Given the inspiration for the game, it's probably not that shocking to find out that, yeah, it's a group-focused game. It's focused on having different classes with class roles and class interdependency, and it's very focused on PvE and challenge. Soloing is possible, but it is far from the most efficient way to play the game. Unlike the current MMORPGs, the game approaches leveling itself as a major part of the game, with each encounter providing a challenge. It has deep shared world dungeons to delve into, like the recently released Holliner Cave and the not so recent released Mad Run, and an open snowy area where I died a ton, Hangor.
I can't see.
Oh no! It's a board!
Well,
oh god!
there's two!
It's an MMO with tons of different classes, several high fantasy playable races, and a distinct gameplay loop that will be familiar to fans of games like EverQuest, Vanguard, and WoW Classic. With one big caveat on the WoW Classic. It's a game where you'll be grouping together to slay strong creatures, get loot, and delve through dungeons. And die.
No.
Hey, remember
What
when
happened,
we were all
Low,
alive?
Oh, they all respawn.
so
Guys, they all
Oh,
respawn.
fire!
We're screwed.
Fire, that's too many.
It's fine.
Wow.
I'll
That was
give
a good
you
time.
all
Dude,
my
that pull-
Ratchet blood in apology.
I think that pull was straight yibbin, personally.
Fire is
No,
training.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Fire is training.
Listen.
Oh!
I
I
wanna
fell!
point out-
Oops! Oh no. Oh no no.
Submerged
Oh
with
no.
a pillar.
Oh no 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 no. Oh. Okay.
Oh, yes.
No!
Deadbeard Flynn has fallen.
I love that
Loser.
parkour.
A lot.
This is, it's
Oh.
basically a full zone in and of itself.
Right.
Oren, I'm sorry.
Wait.
What, Holmes? What'd you do to me? You punk.
That's what my boss
This,
calls me.
this
yeah.
is his favorite
Oh,
thing.
wait,
he
what?
likes to just
What?
teleport me places and let me die.
Oh my god. You didn't say sorry to me. You loser's dead. The game also includes item drop death penalty, though you don't lose your items you have equipped, just the ones you have in your bags. It also has an experience loss when you die. You can de-level in this game. It's not the most hardcore MMORPG out there. I think that still is basically just Ultima Online, like over 20 years later. But it's up there, definitely up there. So just beware. This game, however, is still very much in early access, like many on this list. Whether you enter now with the $50 pledge package or in December with early access, you're just going to be joining an in-development indie MMO in its testing phases. This is not a launch and should not be treated as such. It's going to have bugs and it will have issues, and it will even have wipes. It should also be noted that as of recording this video, we still don't have an exact price for early access testing phase for Pantheon, though it sounds like it should be at least somewhat cheaper than the current $50 package. Probably somewhere in the same range as Corepunk and Pax Dei, pledges around $40 or so. But again, like with Brighter Shores, if we get an update, I will put that down below in the comment section so you can actually see what it's going to cost. If you get a pledge package right now, you can play up through December 1st when the game goes down for an early access patch, but your progress will be wiped at that time. The pledge packages themselves will be retiring on November 30th, right before the servers go down. The downside to Pantheon is going to be, as with Asher Creation, one of the things that is the appeal to its current players, but might not be what a subsection of you watching this video is interested in an MMO. This game is not built around the Quest Hub style MMORPGs that have largely followed development in 2004. Remember how I said it's like WoW Classic, but not? This is the not questing to get experience. Instead, you'll basically just be doing this. You will be going and fighting and killing things, finding things to basically hunt down with your group, with your friends, and taking on the challenges that they present. Part of this game, the way that you are going to be leveling is just this, the going around slaying and killing things. The game does have quests, but they are not the way you level. The game is slower paced and it can be difficult, and those will be some things that some players won't be interested in. So I think it's important to know that before going in, that maybe if that's not what you're looking for, if you're looking for a more guided PvE questing experience or a more of a rush to the end game where you can then grind at the end game instead, this might not be quite what you're looking for. But neither will the next game on our list. This game, well, it's actually already launched into early access, but there's a big update coming. Pax Dei is another title like Fractured Online that is trying to reignite some interest through some huge changes. The former Eve Dev-led MMO is a PvX sandbox, focused game with extensive personal and city building. It is a game where everything is created by the players, from the armor and weapons you wield to the very walls of the buildings you can call your home, and the tools used to build them. As you can see, it's a very, very pretty game. It's a game that focuses a lot on this whole, like, the building parts of it. This building, that looks amazing. But it also has a mixture of PvP and PvE. Pax Dei is designed around being a fully player-driven world with beautiful graphics and environments full of medieval tropes and Arthurian ghost stories, where magic is weaved into the world itself. And on November 5th, they'll be dropping a huge update called Proving Grounds, which will revamp the world, changing the landscape and geography, including a full world wipe. It will bring with it new PvE camps, a new biome, and interestingly, only the world itself is being wiped, not your character progression. And that is largely due to, well, not wanting your old home stuck in a new mountain. But perhaps most consequential of all is that melee combat and spellcasting are getting a major revamp as well. These had been one of the sore points for players of the game. So any major changes, if they work, should probably be a good beacon for it. They're changing majorly how this works, from targeting to interrupts to enemy types, which, speaking of, the enemy type should now be closer to your starting area, allowing you to begin your adventure sooner. It's a patch large enough, I think, to include in this video because it sounds like a potential refresh of the game, though we'll just have to wait and see how players respond to it once it drops. But the negative for Pax Dei for me is always going to be this, the player-built cities. Not that they exist, but that they're only thing that exists. The lack of a world before the players. It's something I picked up on immediately as a difference between logging into Pax Dei for the first time and Azure Creation, because Pax Dei is so intense on the sandbox, it is devoid of a world to inhabit at first. Yes, the idea is eventually to have bustling player-built cities, vendors, etc., but that takes time, and not having a bespoke crafted world to start with is a huge miss in my opinion, and one that I still hope they consider changing. What made the sandbox elements of games like Star Wars Galaxies and Ultima Online work so well was the existence of Theed on Naboo, of Skara Brae in Ultima Online. Dev created cities and locations that gave a place for players to branch out from, and then go and create. The onus wasn't on the player to create the world the moment you stepped in. Honestly, the last game I remember doing that was Landmark, a sandbox crafter game that was basically being built so that you could put stuff into another MMO. It's the difference between a sandbox and a pile of sand. Some framing is necessary. This area is like the safe area as far as I know. It's so safe. Oh, well, now these next MMOs that we're going to talk about, well, they don't actually have a set date for when there'll be a test. They don't have anything coming up in the next month or two, or they might, because these games tend to just have tests that pop up. So they're worth paying attention to just in case. And those tests are generally normally free. What happens when you take the world building and the classes with all of their interdependence of EverQuest and put it into a game with Minecraft style graphics that can appeal to a wider and younger audience than the current crop of EverQuest players? Well, you get Evercraft Online. Evercraft has had 2 big tests recently, and they've always been extremely well received by those who play them. The world building and the feel of gameplay has been highlighted specifically as being very good. And for me, I really have to highlight this world building. It's kind of just done very well. It feels like it has a reason. Everything feels like it's created in a way, in the same kind of way, the same kind of purpose that you got with some older MMOs. The zones, the starter zones, they have character to them. It's perhaps my favorite part of the game. I mean, this ogre city, it feels like an ogre city. The snow falling through the roof, everything. The best way to be notified of their tests is going to be through their Discord, though I do my best to cover them when they do show up. The negative for many, of course, will be the graphical style, as for many, the blocky Minecraft-like graphics will be a turnoff. But if you're looking for an EverQuest style game in a whole new world that feels both new and familiar, definitely keep an eye out for the next test. Speaking of new but familiar in EverQuest, how about Monsters and Memories? Monsters and Memories may be exactly what you're looking for if you're looking for a kind of classic EverQuest experience. It is another indie developed MMO that occasionally opens up tests. Monsters and Memories has a very distinct artistic style, a growing world, and a roster of classes that goes beyond what one would expect from an indie MMO. From necromancers and fighters to beastmasters and spellblades. It's a game where you can even play as a goblin, which is a win in my book. The team making the game is also extremely transparent about just about everything. It's a project that is largely being created through the dedicated passion and volunteering of their team members. That transparency has extended to a robust roadmap that shows they aim to hit early access by 2026, with more testing in 2025. In early access, they will have a $15 a month fee, and early access servers will actually be retained through that 1.0 launch, meaning those characters will remain, but they will also be launching with fresh start servers for 1.0. It is a great project built on a solid foundation of EverQuest, which isn't surprising given that the head developer for the game actually worked on EverQuest. Which, I suppose, brings us to our negative, but I don't want to just repeat the same negative of Pantheon, even though I kind of could. For some players, the negative here will be how similar the game plays to early EverQuest. It is a very classic PvE-focused tab target experience of delving into dungeons. It doesn't diverge much from what EverQuest did in 1999 because it doesn't want to, and the people that are interested in the game also don't want it to. This is a classically inspired MMORPG. It is classic EverQuest in a lot of ways, but in its own bespoke way, its own Monsters and Memories developer type way. Honorable mention here goes to two other MMOs that occasionally have tests pop up, and that's the Unreal Engine DM-led MMO Eternal Tombs, which has been hard at work upgrading their servers, revamping their combat, and making changes. The last test ended on October 13th, but these tests pop up occasionally, so if you want to see what that game is all about, the best place is probably their Discord. Like many of the MMOs on this list, that game is very early in pre-alpha testing, but the idea behind the game is ambitious. Create an MMO where events can happen as you adventure through the world through the influence of in-game GMs. A fantastic idea if it can be pulled off well. And Scars of Honor, an MMO that recently opened up their NDA for a recent playtest and upped their graphics in the process, also periodically runs tests. Scars of Honor will be a free-to-play MMO with no pay-to-win shops, scaling dungeons and raids, in-game land property, and large-scale PvP. It's currently in pre-alpha, so consider testing phases very early, but you can jump in and play between October 26th and November 1st, which probably already passed by the time that you're watching this. But keep an eye out because they still open up those tests. This game actually isn't free to test, but the supporter packs, which do grant access, cost about €10 or $11. While you wait for one of these tests to open up, why not come reminisce with me a little bit on some of the most influential MMOs of all time, the MMOs that led us to this place we're in now. A point where the best prospective MMOs are all mostly lower budget indie titles because AAA MMOs are more focused on overly monetizing the crap out of you and throwing in-game systems specifically for that purpose and not actually trying to make the game fun. But you reminisce with me.